Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you all for rocking with me, and I may not be able to repay you with today's content, but I promise you I will try. So let's get into it. Today I want to briefly discuss the Shannon Sharp situation. And if you don't know, Shannon Sharp was accused of sexually assault, and the sexual assault case has been dismissed, right? And it's been dismissed without prejudice, meaning that it can't be brought back up. Now, they originally asked Shannon Sharp for $10 million before they came forward, and I think they upped the ante to somewhere around $45-50 million. So I'm not sure what they actually settled on. They haven't come out and expressed that, and Shannon Sharp hasn't come out and said anything about this situation at all. You know, he's said the entire time that he was innocent and that it was a shakedown. But I want to talk about the situation at hand, man, you know, because it's really getting out of hand. You see a lot of men in the culture, especially a lot of wealthy men, being accused of sexual assault. And I'm one that has always maintained my belief that there should never, ever be a civil suit in sexual assault cases. I think that a sexual assault case should always be a criminal case. Always be a criminal case, right? Because when you allow a woman to be incentivized for a lie, and you're going to have a lot of women that are going to come out and make these type of accusations just because they know that there's a potential benefit on the other side of it. And I just don't think that that's fair that the person being accused have to go through all that men usually have to go through with these sexual assault allegations. And I think that if you remove the civil suit, you really wean out a lot of the bad actors, right? That's first and foremost. I just want to get that out of the way. Now, with this Shannon Sharp situation, man, you know, I went back and I looked at the messages and the whole situation. And I've had a lot of time to just process this situation, man, from just a bunch of different angles. And one being, you know, she was 19 years old, you know, and I'm imagining myself, because they supposedly have met in the gym. I'm imagining myself being the young 39 years old, and I'm in a gym, and a 19-year-old young woman approached me. There's not really much that I feel like me and a 19-year-old has to talk about. I got a daughter that's 19 years old, right? There's very little that I believe that me and a 19-year-old has to talk about unless she's asking for some sort of advice, or, you know, she needs help working some equipment. I'm going to try to keep it as professional and as brief as I possibly can. And I'm on my merry way, right? And I'm not a multi-millionaire. If I'm a multi-millionaire, there's really not really much that we have to discuss. I just don't think that it's proper. I don't think that it's appropriate, man. You know, again, she's a baby. So that's the one thing that jumped out at me, right? I'm imagining myself in that situation and how I would possibly conduct myself. But for some reason, Shannon Sharp, he bit. They exchanged numbers. I'm sure she probably knew who he was, and she anticipated that first call. And they dealt with each other for 2 whole years, man. You know, and I having the tolerance of dealing with a 19-year-old kid in an intimate relationship for that long, it's just, you know, it's something that I don't think that we should be okay with as a society, man. You know, 19 years old, young woman, still hasn't figured herself out. She needs mentorship. She needs leadership. She needs nurturing. She doesn't need to be exploited or taken advantage of. And that's just my honest opinion, right? So that's my first angle. The second angle is, man, this Shannon Sharp had $100 million deals. Like, I think that he basically claimed that he broke the bank with the whole ESPN deal. I mean, they paid him a whole lot of money. And then he had this thing going over there at Club Shay Shay where he was just killing it. Right? And he lost tens of millions of dollars when endorsers dropped him. Right? Why would you put yourself in that type of situation, man, when you have so much to lose? right? You're in a gym. You're basically a 200 millionaire man. You have millions and millions and millions of dollars, and all of the women that you can possibly entertain, you entertain a young person. And that just doesn't speak of a person of reason. Right? So that's my second take. Like, I just don't understand how he could have so much to lose and, put himself in a predicament where he can possibly lose everything. And again, he lost tens of millions of dollars, and he lost even more respect, from so many of his peers. And then I got to begin to thinking, man, like, what is it that we could possibly begin to speak about and talk about so we can save people in the future from falling victim to this same situation? And then I thought about myself and some of the conversations that I had with some of my comrades. And it all goes back to developing codes of conduct. When you establish codes of conduct, you establish principles. It's not about you being better than nobody else, man. A code of conduct is the only thing that can protect you when you find yourself in situations where you're tempted. A code of conduct or principles is the only thing outside of maybe religion that will protect you when you find yourself in a situation and it requires for you to make decisions that may or may not be in your best interest. When you have codes of conduct and you have principles, those principles and those codes of conduct come to your aid when you need them. You understand? So let's just say Shannon Sharp, he's in the gym. He's already had a discussion with himself. And he's already counted his costs. He's already going over his non-negotiables. If that young 19-year-old woman approach him and maybe she's flirtatious and he doesn't feed into it, man, he saved himself so much heartache and pain. And this is something that we all need as not just men, we need it as a society. It just seems like today, man, everybody is just doing everything. And whenever you speak up on it, you're being called, you're being told that you're too serious or you're too sensitive. Man, I'm not trying to, especially these internet trolls. It's time for us to be more sensitive. There's nothing wrong with being sensitive. Being sensitive just means that you're in tune with whatever it is that's in front of you. But so many of us have been taught that being hardcore and being closed out is the way, and it's not the way, man. We have to be able to have these type of conversations, put them on the forefront, and call each other out when necessary. There's no way, man, that a 57-year-old man should be dating a 19-year-old. In no world do I feel like that's okay. What could a 19-year-old possibly offer a 57-year-old man outside of intimacy? And you're willing to risk everything that you've built for moments with a little girl, with a baby. I'm telling you, man, my advice to all of the men that find themselves listening to this episode, or women too, is, man, you have to establish codes of conduct. You have to establish the codes of conduct because, again, you're having this conversation with yourself. You don't have codes of conduct. The chances that you're going to violate yourself is likely. The chances that you're going to put yourself in a bad situation is likely. But when you take yourself through the process and you sit with yourself and you talk with yourself and you discuss with yourself the things that you won't do, it's helpful, man. That way, when people begin to try to persuade you, or people try to bait the hook to catch the fish, they know exactly what it is that you want and how you want it. So they persuade you by saying, "Look, I know what you want, and I got it over here." When you've already established those boundaries and those fundamentals, you're like, okay, I want it, but I don't want it like that. The tricks of the trade, they don't work on you. You know what I mean? So it's important that we get with the program. Again, man, it's hard times for so many people. And when women are put in strenuous situations, man, they take to really, really sleazy means, man, to get by. And that's just a society as a whole. It's not just a woman thing. It's a people thing. When you put strain on society, people begin to do things that they usually wouldn't do because their situations may be dire. And as men and just people in general, we have to walk through this world with a level of discernment to keep ourselves safe, man, because rarely do the person that you meet, rarely is the person standing in front of you expressing their true identity. Everybody's wearing masks. You know what I mean? So you really got to be safe out here, man. You gotta do the hard work beforehand. You do the hard work beforehand, man. You like I said, you give yourself a fighting chance. I'm interested to hear what y'all got to say about this specific topic, man. Do you believe that it was okay for Shannon to get with the young girl? Do you believe that it was fair game? And do you think that civil lawsuits in these sexual assault cases should be eradicated, man, to protect innocent men from going through the trauma that so many find themselves going through because you have women looking for a shakedown, and in a lot of cases, these attorneys coercing women into going after high-profile guys. I'm interested to hear what y'all got to say about this specific topic, man. I started full. I'm empty for now. I love y'all. I'll catch y'all next time.